Somewhere right now, a boat builder is finalizing engine packages for next year's flagship center console, and one manufacturer just redesigned 6 different outboards in its own lineup over the past year without touching the single number everyone's actually watching. It isn't Mercury, already shipping a 600 horsepower V12 and showing off an 808 horsepower concept on top of that. It isn't Yamaha, already shipping a 450 horsepower V8 onto customer hulls. It's Honda, a company whose flagship BF350 has been stuck at exactly 350 horsepower, the same ceiling Suzuki is sitting at since the engine launched, even while everything underneath it just got rebuilt. But on June 26, 2026, buried inside a corporate reorganization announcement that most boaters scrolled straight past, Honda's marine division went on the record with a phrase the outboard industry has been waiting a year and a half to hear. Here's what that phrase actually said, why Honda's own recent history makes it impossible to ignore, and why it might be the most important sentence Honda Marine has said all year. The press release itself read like routine corporate housekeeping. American Honda announced it was folding its marine division back into a unified power sports and products structure alongside power sports and power equipment just 2 years after Marine had been split out as its own standalone division in 2024. John Stevens, a 25-year Honda veteran who has worked across all 3 divisions, was promoted to vice president over the whole operation. Jeremy Maguire took over as director of shared sales operations, and Josh Matthews, who had only taken over Honda Marine himself back in February, stayed on as the director specifically overseeing Marine under the new structure. But the line that mattered was buried in the description of what Marine would focus on next: strengthening relationships with boat builders, expanding the dealer network, and broadening its product lineup. That reorganization came directly on the heels of a fiscal year in which Honda's own power sports and marine divisions beat their internal sales targets, which means this wasn't a division getting folded in because it was struggling. It was a division being told to grow right after its leadership publicly admitted the current lineup isn't the finish line. To understand why broadening its product lineup counts as market-moving news, you have to see where Honda has actually been standing. At the 2026 Miami International Boat Show, Mercury's booth centered on that 808 horsepower V12 concept. Yamaha had its full XTO lineup on the water. Honda's booth at Space MB 2426 still centered on the BF350 alongside its mid-range and portable lineup, and the McLaren-badged M300 with no successor and no concept engine on a pedestal anywhere in sight. The redesign work everyone's heard about sits one tier down. Honda rebuilt its 4-cylinder BF115, BF135, and BF150 outboards, and its V6 BF200, BF225, and BF250 outboards, unveiling the new internals, controls, and styling at European boat shows in September of 2025 before the updated engines began reaching dealers in early 2026. Below 350 horsepower, Honda has clearly been busy. At the very top, it's the same ceiling Honda has been living under since before the reorganization was even a rumor. So what has Honda actually built, and why has that ceiling held? Honda entered the outboard business in 1964 with the GB30, a 2.5 horsepower engine, originally designed for agricultural use and adapted for small fishing boats, built on founder Soichiro Honda's insistence that watercraft should not pollute the water, at a time when nearly every competitor ran 2-stroke engines. It took Honda almost 30 years for that 4-stroke bet to gain real traction in the marketplace. In 1971, Honda introduced the 45 Twin and 75 Twin, the first horizontally opposed and overhead cam designs ever used in small marine engines. By 1985, Honda was the first manufacturer offering a complete lineup of lightweight 4-stroke outboards, years before most rivals took 4-strokes seriously. In 2006, the BF90 and BF75 launched as the lightest four-strokes in their class, and Honda's mid-range four-cylinder Outboards still share powerhead lineage with the K24 VTEC engine that powers the Honda Accord, a direct line from the automotive side that the BF350's standalone V8 doesn't share. That reliability-first approach has paid off directly. Honda has now won the NMMA Customer Satisfaction Index Award for outboard engines more than 20 years running. Honda's confidence in that reputation shows up outside the spec sheet too. This August, Honda is the title sponsor of the 2026 Great Loop Challenge, an endurance run of 7,300 or more nautical miles, raising money for pediatric cancer research, with the custom race boat running on twin BF350 V8s, specifically to prove out reliability over open water, coastal, and freshwater conditions in one continuous run. In the UK, Honda Marine is backing an offshore powerboat racing campaign for the first time since it walked away from competitive racing in 2009, aiming at the Cows to Torquay to Cows race on August 30th, the oldest offshore powerboat race in the world. A company that spent 17 years avoiding the racing spotlight does not suddenly step back into it to defend an engine it plans to retire quietly. Then, after 8 years of development, the actual flagship arrived. Honda unveiled the BF350 in the fall of 2023, ahead of that year's IBEX show, with full production confirmed the following February. It was Honda's first V8 of any kind, on land or water, a 5-liter, 4,952 cubic centimeter engine, producing 350 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, running on regular 86-octane gas instead of premium. It uses Honda's VTEC valve system borrowed straight from the automotive side, and it's the only major outboard with native NMEA 2000 data output, which saves installers roughly $1,000 in gateway hardware most competing brands still require. It's not without trade-offs. At roughly 347 kilograms, the BF350 is heavier than Suzuki's contra-rotating DF350 at 330 kilograms, and considerably heavier than Mercury's V10 350 Verado at 316 kilograms, the price Honda paid for building a full V8 instead of a lighter V6 or V10. Honda targeted the BF350 specifically at boats 25 feet and longer, and testers who ran it on a twin-engine CV322Z offshore came away calling it a legitimate entry into a class Honda had never competed in before. If you're wondering why any of this matters beyond spec sheets, hit subscribe, because whichever engine builder wins this horsepower race decides which hulls get engineered around their block for the next decade. The reason Honda's ceiling is suddenly under this much scrutiny is that everyone around it has kept climbing at exactly the moment the broader market can least afford a misstep. The National Marine Manufacturers Association's own data through early 2026 shows new powerboat retail sales down close to 9% year over year, landing around 214,000 units on a rolling 12-month basis, which means every engine manufacturer is fighting harder for a shrinking pool of serious buyers, and horsepower has become one of the sharpest ways to win that fight. Mercury's chief executive told investors on an April 2026 earnings call that the company currently has 5 separate outboard platforms in simultaneous development, with outboard propulsion revenue up 17% that quarter alone. Yamaha's XTO Offshore, a 5.6-liter V8 producing 450 horsepower, has been rigged onto customer boats for years already. Suzuki, sitting at that same 350 horsepower ceiling as Honda, has recently started dropping its own hints about breaking past it. Honda is the only one of the big four that hasn't shipped anything bigger than 350 horsepower since 2023, even after its own leadership said something bigger was coming. That promise has a paper trail. When Honda partnered with McLaren Engineering in December 2024 to build the M300, a 300 horsepower tune of Honda's existing BF350 V6 unveiled at the 2025 Miami show, the modifications included a new high-lift camshaft, a reprogrammed ECU with knock control, and higher flow fuel injectors, pushing the red line from 6,300 RPM to 6,400 RPM on 90-octane fuel. Honda Marine's then-director Daniel Sherlock said the McLaren collaboration and the BF350 launch together illustrated Honda's next-level strategy, adding that plans for future, more powerful offerings in the Honda-McLaren line would be announced in the next few months. That was January of 2025. Sherlock retired that February 2026 after 20 years at American Honda, having never delivered on that specific promise. Trade press covering the outboard market reported independently in January of 2026 that Honda was already engineering even larger outboards behind the scenes, all before Marine got folded back into the unified PS and P structure 5 months later with that same open-ended promise to broaden its product lineup attached. There's a real case that this slow rollout is discipline, not delay. This is a company that waited nearly 30 years between entering the outboard business and having a 4-stroke lineup the market actually wanted, then spent 8 more years developing a single V8 before it ever reached a dealer floor. Honda's more than 20 straight NMMA satisfaction awards did not come from rushing products to market. Even the smaller moves since Matthews took over the Marine division in February have been about protecting that reputation rather than chasing headlines. A new, true 5-year rigging warranty covering controls, cables, wiring harnesses, and displays launched in February, and the Propel Your Story marketing push that followed leaned on the BF350's reliability rather than any promise of more power. A half-built V8 successor that ships before Honda is confident in it would cost far more in warranty claims and dealer trust than staying quiet ever will, and Honda has never chased a spec sheet number just to keep pace with Mercury or Yamaha. So when Honda's own reorganization announcement says the Marine division exists now specifically to broaden its lineup, that isn't filler language in a routine internal memo. It's the clearest signal in a year and a half that whatever comes after the BF350 is closer than it's ever been. Mercury and Yamaha are already shipping engines Honda can't match on paper, and Suzuki is no longer content sitting at the same 350 horsepower ceiling either. Whether Honda's answer turns out to be a bigger V8, something built with McLaren again, or a genuinely new platform nobody's guessed yet is still completely unconfirmed. What do you think Honda is actually building? Tell me in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.